Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube. And welcome to another edition of my 13,000 subscriber Q&A series. We still have a lot of questions to answer. We're going to try to put a ding in a lot of these questions. So we're going to get right into it. Now, I want to be sure that you guys are aware this is not the finale of the 13,000 subscriber Q&A series. That's how many questions I'm still buried in. But we are going to make some headway. So first question. Sean, I've been watching you since 500 subscribers. Congrats on the success. My question is, with market volatility and geopolitical uncertainty affecting the world for the foreseeable future, is there a historical reference point to see what Collectibles would do in this situation? The answer is no, and here's why. Pretty much what caused what we are currently seeing in the overall economy, even in the overall state of the antiques and collectibles trade, is what occurred during and after the pandemic. Pandemic came, we shut down the economy, we gave everybody checks to spend money on stupid stuff, and they all spent money on collectibles, more specifically, pop culture collectibles. This sent a lot of collectible markets into the stratosphere. You had great at video games accelerating and reaching new heights during this particular time. Vintage comic books were soaring to all-time highs. You had collectible card games, mainly Pokemon, breaking new ground during this particular time. Now, ironically, I was here on YouTube telling you guys that if you had this stuff, you should be selling into the market. These particular price increases would not last. Well, what happened? Pandemic ended. We reopened up the economy. The government checks stopped. Even the PPP loans stopped. And as a result, collectible prices dropped a hellin'. Let's be realistic. The great video game marketplace pretty much crashed, losing close to 60 to 80% of its overall value, depending on what segment, what sector. When we look at comic books, vintage comic books fell anywhere from 25 to 40% on average. Are there exceptions to every rule? Yes, there are exceptions to every rule. But this is why you do not invest or buy into the hype. I keep telling you guys that. In certain cases, you are aware. The correct answer is to do absolutely nothing. Meaning, let's say that you're somebody, you're really intrigued in the collectibles market space, and you're seeing prices just go through the roof. All these publications, the news media is talking about, you need to invest in Pokemon cards, or you need to invest in comic books, or let me show you how to invest in sneakers, vintage sneakers. Whenever you start seeing articles like that, or the news media is covering segments of the antiques and collectibles trade in that light, it usually means you need to take your proverbial foot off the gas and do absolutely nothing in those markets. Now, that's easier said than done because most of us have an emotional attachment to these items. I get it. But you have to understand that when everybody else is investing in an antique or a collectible or a cryptocurrency or even gold, silver, any of these alternate asset classes, it's usually a very bad time to buy into them. And to answer your question, is there a historical reference point to see what collectibles would do in this situation? I know I already answered it, but just to give you a more detailed answer, the answer is no. It's just like people that went through the Great Depression back in 1929. They didn't have a manual to look at and go, oh, how to survive a Great Depression. It's great that I have this handy dandy little manual here. Or during the 2008-2009 financial crisis. Nobody had a guide how to get through that proverbial crisis. It was new. It was something that we haven't seen before. And what happened? The politicians came in and they pretty much bailed out all the banks. They bailed out all the big corporations. And what happened? They pretty much just recreated the system again as it was. And I keep telling you guys, I have a lot of people that come to me on this channel, Sean, it's all going to zero. I'm putting all my money in gold, silver, crypto. It's all going to go to zero. And I continually laugh at these individuals. I don't care if you have a different political viewpoint than me. And for the record, you guys know I'm on the left side of the political equation. Maybe you're a hardcore conservative, or maybe you're a hardcore libertarian. You do realize it doesn't matter. Whatever political party is in office, they will all bail out, in most cases, the major corporations, the financial system, the big banks, at your expense because their donors, whether you're a Republican, whether you're a Democrat, their donors, the people that they answer to, are the major shareholders who hold stock in those major corporations. And I can sit here and explain this till I'm blue in the face. This is why the best investment to hold over the long term, you can go research this on your own, is a well-diversified financial portfolio that is pretty much based in index-based mutual funds and ETFs. It is simply for that reason. It will never, ever go to zero. Does that mean we may not have a prolonged recession on the horizon, or even, heaven forbid, a prolonged depression? That's not out of the realm of possibility. But I just want to make you aware that the Federal Reserve, the politicians that we put in office, they have a lot of power to help weather through that storm. You know, guys, even during the 2008-2009 crisis, literally within 2 years from that occurring, we were pretty much already in recovery. You know, here's an interesting question for you guys. A lot of people get this wrong. During the Great Depression of 1929, let me say that again, the Great Depression of 1929, what do you think the unemployment rate was? Everybody gets this wrong. Everybody thinks that we had like a 50 or 60% unemployment rate because you see all that early pictures or footage of soup kitchens and the like. Believe it or not, the unemployment rate in 1929 in the middle of the Great Depression was literally only 25%. Now, I know what you're thinking. Sean, that's horrible, 25%. Well, let me word it to you this way. 3 out of 4 people during the Great Depression had a job. Let me say that again. 3 out of 4 people during the Great Depression that wanted to work had a job. It wasn't as bad as you guys make it out to be. Gold was not a great commodity to hold back then. Now, to be fair, back then, we were still on the gold standard. The gold standard officially ended under Nixon in the 1970s. I know, I don't want to rehash all this, but I'm just saying, in the 1929 Depression, unemployment rate was only at 25%, which means on average, let me say this once more before I go on to something else here. On average, only 1 out of 4 people who wanted to work were out of work. It's not as bad as a lot of you guys make it out to be. I used to hear the stories from my grandfather. My grandfather lived through it. He survived. He did okay. He eventually had a stroke and died, but he survived the Great Depression. He survived World War II. Okay, and intact, guys. Okay? So now let's go on to another subject matter, since I already answered that question in full. Sean, you always say that investing in collectibles is sort of a bad idea. Okay, it's not necessarily a bad idea. It's the approach that most people take. Most people do not understand that you diversify into antiques and collectibles. You cannot make it the major crux of your financial portfolio. If you do that, you are going to get slapped in the face with a stale donut at some point. It is not going to work out for you over the long term. And I tell people this, if you're going to diversify in the antiques and collectibles trade, assuming that is the only alternate asset class that you are investing in. You're not doing anything stupid with gold and silver. You're not doing anything stupid with cryptocurrency. You're not doing anything stupid with commodities. You can go all the way up and put 20% of your net worth in antiques and collectibles if you understand what you're doing. You understand how the game is played. You understand the difference between speculation and investing. You understand how to hold these particular assets over the short term and that of the long term if you choose to. And this is something that a lot of people on YouTube, TikTok, collecting forums who are giving you advice about this stuff do not understand. And that's why I tell you guys, you have to have a well-positioned, diversified portfolio first. Then you diversify into antiques and collectibles. You want to diversify in gold and silver? That's fine. You can do that. Start with a well-diversified financial portfolio. Then diversify in gold and silver or cryptocurrency. Now, personally, I don't like cryptocurrency. I do not really like gold and silver. That's going to be coming up in another question here. So I'm going to save that particular talking point for that question. But just know it's not that collecting investments in the antiques and collectibles trade, I'm going to word it that way, new spin on that particular term, is a bad idea. It's the way that most people go about doing it. They get obsessed with it. They put all their money, all their eggs in one basket, and they think they know more than the experts in the trade. And every time, literally every time, we are proven right overall. If you go back, you can read almost every single Harry Rinker article is online at www.harryrinker.com. Go have a ball. You can read every single article, and you will see almost all of his predictions that he talks about in a lot of those articles came 100% true. He knew what he was talking about. All these experts in the trade, I really hate to tell you guys, we're very intelligent. We understand business. We understand finance. We understand overall economics. We understand speculative bubbles. A lot of you guys get caught up in stupid stuff. You sit here and say things, Sean, did you see how much the Super Mario movie made? Therefore, video games they're gonna be the next big thing, baby. I'm going all in. You're going all in because people went to see a movie on a Saturday night with their significant other or their friends? That doesn't mean they're going to be investing in vintage video games. That is fucking stupid. Do you guys even think? It's just like the people that go and see the latest comic book movie. Oh, this is awesome. I'm seeing Black Panther on the big screen. That means everybody's going to want to own a Black Panther comic book. No. Collectors, speculators, the average dude that took his chick to see the Black Panther, it was a popcorn movie. Literally, they're going to forget about it probably the next day. Maybe at best they talk about it for a week, then they forget about it until the sequel comes out. They're not going to buy a $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 comic book because they just saw a comic book movie. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Remember, a collector is born. They are not made. You cannot convince somebody to become a collector over the long term. Either they're born that way or they're not. If they don't have the proverbial collecting gene, they are never, ever going to understand a lot of the things that I talk about on this particular YouTube channel. And that's okay, because this is a collectible finance channel anyway. Now, you go on to ask, Sean, you state that we should invest in mutual funds, index funds, and the like. How can I get introduced to this? You need to read a lot of the books that I recommend on this particular YouTube channel. No, I'm not going to rehash old ground. Go back and watch those videos. Go back and watch the video where I talk about Collectible Finance 101, and you will see a lot of those books that I recommend appear in that particular video as recommendations. Even worse, how does a person living outside of America invest in these markets? It depends on what country you live in. If you're in the United Kingdom, if you're in most industrialized countries of the world, especially in Europe, you can actually have a Vanguard account, you can have a Charles Schwab account, you can have a T. Rowe Price account, you can have a Fidelity account, and you can invest in the U.S. stock market, among other assets. I will tell you that. It just depends on what country you are living in right now. You didn't tell me that, so I can't answer it precisely. Next question. Sean, question for you. In one of your previous videos, you had mentioned that you did not like annuities as an investment vehicle. Just wondering if you could elaborate on this, since annuities are the backbone of some workplace corporate pension plans, which you can't opt out of. Okay, if an annuity that you own is made up of a pension plan or any type of workforce plan that you have, don't worry about it. I'm not stating that you should worry because you're forced to invest in an annuity. In that sense, you have no control over that. What I am really speaking to is, in most cases, there are exceptions to this rule. I want to be very clear. But in most cases, the average person should not be investing in annuities due to the fees, due to how they're set up. Annuities are more like a life insurance contract. That's what they're based on. They're really not a very good long-term financial product, in my opinion. And remember, guys, I have operated in the financial community. I was involved in that in my career. I do understand a lot about that. I am currently not a licensed anything. So I am not licensed in finance at present time. But what I will tell you, I never really liked annuities because most people that were investing in them truly did not understand them. And most of them got slapped in the face with high fees. They got slapped in the face with a lot of issues that they didn't anticipate from choosing to invest in annuity, where in their younger years, if they actually would have put together a well-diversified portfolio, in most cases, they wouldn't be in that situation. And if you don't believe me, I think Investopedia has the pros and cons of annuities. You can actually just Google that article on Investopedia, pros and cons of annuities, and it should come right up. There's like 5 or 6 well-known cons or negatives to investing in annuities. And a lot of people do not realize this. And if you don't understand finance and you get someone who's a really slick salesman in front of you who really does know finance and he's also good at selling, they can really talk you into pretty much anything. You have to be careful in that sense. And I just want to warn you guys, again, be very careful. You know, a big thing that you guys should understand, if you're going to invest in anything, I don't care if it's a Nintendo Amiibo, I don't care if it's an S&P 500 index fund, I don't care if it's a stupid meme stock that I would never recommend, I don't care if it's cryptocurrency, again, that I would never recommend. If you're going to invest in an asset over the long term or even over the short term, you should fully understand it. And that's why I honestly recommend on this channel that you guys read a lot of the books that I recommend. If you would read a lot of these books that I recommend, if you would listen to some of these authors, if you would listen to other experts in the antiques and collectibles trade just alone, you would realize that a lot of the shit that a lot of these other YouTubers in this particular space are talking about, or TikTokers, or people on online collecting forums, they don't know the proverbial ass from the hole in the ground. Now, are there exceptions to every rule? There are people out there that have a large fan base in the overall antiques and collectibles space on YouTube that I have a lot of respect for. Doesn't mean I agree with every one thing that they say. I want to make that very clear. For instance, I'll name one of these individuals. I have a lot of respect for Rudy with Alpha Investments. That doesn't mean if you were to put us in a room, we would have a lot of differences. There's a lot of things that I'd be like, dude, do you really believe that? And I'm sure that he would have differences on some of the advice that I give on this channel. But overall, it's more of a matter of differing perspectives and understanding where we're both coming from. That doesn't mean, though, that I agree with a lot of the smaller channels that are popping up that are telling you, put all your money in Pokemon cards. Put all your money in whatever it is, the latest Magic the Gathering set. Put all your money in Funko Pops or vintage comic books or whatever it is. It doesn't work that way, guys. There's a lot of differences that the average person just doesn't understand when it comes to investing in any market, and antiques and collectibles are no different. And that doesn't mean that I am telling you that I have all the answers. There's no such thing as an expert that is 100% right 100% of the time. I want to make that very clear. All of us at times have been forced to look at evidence and go, that's interesting. Kind of changes the paradigm of this particular collecting market, or it kind of changes how I view this particular antique market over the short term or over the long term. That's why I do a lot of videos on catalysts. What is a catalyst? Something that springs up and changes the trajectory of a collecting category for better or worse. Let me give you an example. Comic book grading in 2001 was a new thing. When that paradigm occurred, when that catalyst happened, it changed the market for vintage comic books going forward. Then you had the wonderful Marvel decision to pretty much be purchased by Disney and create the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That also changed the paradigm. It was a catalyst that changed the direction of that collecting market. And still to this day, third-party grading in comic books and also the Disney Cinematic Universe are pretty much affecting the comic book marketplace overall. So as a result, I had to change, at least within the last 10 years, my fundamental view of that market. Do you see what I'm saying? So you can go back and you can watch some of these videos and go, well, wait a minute, didn't you contradict yourself there? Well, this channel has been on YouTube now for 4 years. That's why I tell you guys, the best videos that you should watch, if you watch any of my content, go back and watch the whiteboard videos, because I teach all the core basics of the antiques and collectibles trade from a financial perspective in those videos. Those core fundamentals will never change. It'll never, ever change. It's just like if I took the time to sit here and show you guys how to analyze a stock or show you how to analyze the S&P 500 index fund over a 1-year performance criteria, over 5 years, 10 years. That would never change. It's the same thing with the whiteboard videos I do. That's why I feel proud when I look back on this channel and I see those whiteboard videos getting viewed. Because if you really want to understand collectible finance, that's really what you got to study. You got to read the books that I recommend. You got to listen to the experts I tell you to listen to, or at least read and get an idea of what they're saying, and also understand the practicality as to how these markets work. And that's what the whiteboard videos are set up to do. So I hope that answers your question in full. Next question. Sean, controversial question time. What are your thoughts on buying and stacking gold and silver by the ounce? Okay, full disclosure. I do not mean to offend anybody here. Let me say that again. I'm not trying to offend anyone. But if you go to Google and you type in S&P 500 versus gold, you're going to come across a graph. And that graph is going to go back in certain instances, depending on when you want to look at that graph from. That graph goes back more than 100 years. And you can see the performance of the S&P 500 versus gold versus that of silver. And you're going to see the S&P 500 blows them both away as investments. It's not even close, guys. The people that are investing in gold and silver over the long term, who do not have a well-diversified portfolio already in place, are clueless as to how finance works. And I try to say that as nice as I can. I get into debates with gold bugs all the time. So this is all I'm going to say to you. You guys know, you guys can call me a leftist elitist, a liberal elitist, however you want to define me, that's fine. Go and listen to Dave Ramsey. Me and Dave Ramsey are at opposite ends of the political spectrum. I'm a progressive. He's a hardcore conservative. As a matter of fact, he calls himself an economic libertarian in some of his videos. Complete opposite of me. If you go on his show or you go and watch some of his videos where he talks about gold, he'll tell you it's the worst investment ever conceived. And he, again, is opposite political sides as me. So you need to really listen to some of these other individuals, not just me, who are telling you, you guys that are putting all your money in gold and silver, you're making a major mistake. You don't even understand the opportunity cost you're making over the long term compared to somebody who is investing in a well-diversified portfolio. And every time I state this, I have critics in the comment section that come to me, Sean, what about the 2008-2009 financial crisis? What is it that I tell you guys? If you were investing in during the 2008-2009 financial crisis and you held an S&P 500 index fund, you didn't sell it. You kept investing in it through thick and thin. You did very well the last decade. And that's going to continue to be a very good performing asset over the next 20, 30, 40 years. I'm here to tell you guys, it doesn't matter what Fox News tells you. It doesn't matter what your favorite politician tells you. It doesn't matter what Steve Bannon tells you, because I see now he's working with a company to sell people gold through some of his advertisements. Gold is a horrible investment over the long term. Now, are there reasons to diversify into gold? Are there reasons to own gold and silver bullion? Me, you guys know that I invest in rare coins. So by default, because I'm invested in rare coins, I automatically have holdings somewhat devoted to gold and silver. Now, obviously, when I hold up a $10,000 gold coin that only has an ounce of gold in it, or even a quarter of an ounce of gold in it in some cases, I'm obviously not directly investing in gold bullion when I'm buying that particular coin. But if I'm going to invest in something, I would rather invest in collectible rare coins that are made of gold and silver than going after coins like American Silver Eagles, American Gold Eagles, American Buffalo Eagles, and the like. So what I am going to tell you is, if you want to diversify into gold and silver, and it's only 3 to 5% of your entire net worth, and you just feel comfortable doing that, meaning if you have a $100,000 portfolio, you put $3,000 to $5,000 in gold, and that's all that you own in gold, I'm okay with that. I'm not going to call you an idiot. There are reasons for diversifying into gold. I don't diversify into it directly because I have already close to 20% of my net worth tied up in the antiques and collectibles trade. And again, that goes into rare coins as well. But if you're somebody out there, you seriously want to think it's all going to go to zero, we're all going to be living in like Germany in 1931, and you honestly want to diversify in gold and silver, you do you. As long as you're not putting all your money into it, as long as it's a small amount in your portfolio, I will never, ever insult you. It's the people that put all their money in gold, silver, cryptocurrency, all these stupid alternate asset classes that have no income stream. If you look at the history of most of those type of asset classes, they are pretty much bad investments over the long term. And yes, this extends to crypto. I don't care what anybody says. Crypto is only a little over 10 years old at present time. The trend that it was on could not possibly last forever. And that's why we entered into a crypto winter. I told you guys that that was eventually going to happen. Go back and watch a lot of the earlier videos I did on this channel where I talk about cryptocurrency. I talk about gold and silver. I even talk about cautioning against people from investing hardcore in the antiques and collectibles trade. I hope that answers your question. Again, not trying to offend anybody. Just trying to give you the truth that you can find on your own if you avoid the hype. If you avoid the stupidity of people telling you, we're going to go to nuclear war and everybody's going to be trading with gold and silver. No, they're not. They're going to want ammunition, food, water, and medical supplies. They're not going to want your gold and silver. I'm sorry that you are misled in that matter. Next question. Sean, how you doing? How's life been the last few years with everything that's been going on? Any major changes occur? How's the job situation? Any big life changes coming up in the next year or so, as you hope? I'm doing okay. I'll just answer it that way. I have a lot of things that are in the works, and I don't want to spoil that on camera. There are some things, some changes that will be happening in my life over the next few years. I do know that. Again, I just don't want to state anything right now. I am okay. My health is okay right now. I'm doing okay. That's pretty much how I'll answer that question. But I do thank you for asking this. It does mean a lot to me because at least somebody took the time to just ask, Sean, how are you doing overall? So I do appreciate that. Next question. Sean, I have quite a lot of savings built up since I sold off much of my stuff during the COVID bubble, smart man, and haven't spent much on acquiring new things. Do you think the next 2 years are going to be a buyer's market, or do you think too many people are thinking like me, combined with people who may not want to sell in general? It's hard to say. I will tell you that certain markets are entering into a buyer's market. You know, honestly, certain graded video games, I'm going to say this, they do look appealing at the prices that they are selling for now. Now, is that a market that I would like to play in? No, it's not. But if you're somebody that's looking for certain graded video games, if you look at the price and you see that it already dropped like 60, 70, 80% from its all-time high, it's up to you if you want to take the risk. Again, I would not recommend it. It's a very speculative market. It's a very new market. But if it's something that you're really passionate about, if it's something that you really want to get involved in, it may not be a bad idea to just take the risk and buy a particular item that you had your eye on. Same thing's true with comic books, you know, certain comic books. Comic books have really, really accelerated in value in the last 10 years. And even with some of them falling 20 to 40%, some of them are still overpriced, in my opinion. So that's a market that could go either way. Now, obviously, if you have the means to buy an Action Comics 1, a Detective Comics 27, a Batman 1, a Hulk 1, a major key like that that's in limited supply, you do you. You're not going to get those particular books at lower prices in the future, in my opinion, at least not in the near future. So it just really depends on the market. I will state this because there are a lot of people that do watch this channel and they like my commentary on coins and currency. I honestly think that coins and currency have really shot up in value literally within the last few years. And in certain instances, you may want to take a wait and see attitude depending on what you are buying. And I know that that sounds shocking coming from somebody like me that does like that market, but even me, guys, I have kind of pulled my proverbial foot off the gas when it comes to investing in rare coins and pieces of currency right now. I just want to take a wait and see attitude to see what the market does overall. Another market I will bring up here is, I think Pokemon is very overvalued right now. I also think that certain vintage toys are also still overvalued. I know this causes a lot of controversy when I say this. When I invest in vintage toys, you guys know I like a lot of the truly scarce items, proof cards for Star Wars collecting, items of that nature. And I know for whatever reason that causes a lot of controversy when I bring that up on YouTube, I guess because of the amount that I spend on some of those pieces. But I will tell you, a lot of vintage toys are really, really selling for high premiums in the overall market. And honestly, in another 10 years or so, I don't think that a lot of those prices are going to be sustainable, simply because if you look what's happening right now with Mego toys, the top 5% of the market for Mego toys, mainly the superhero line, is accelerating in value. But the bottom 95% is not doing much at all compared to your Masters of the Universe, G.I. Joe, Star Wars, Transformers, toy lines like that. So I do caution people, if you are going to invest in vintage toys, just be sure it is a proverbial blue chip toy that's going to have a large following, literally within the next 10, 20 years, that could potentially ignite interest into the youngsters. And honestly, I only see one toy line that has the potential to do that, and that's Star Wars. And there's going to be more videos on this particular YouTube channel that are going to be coming up about that particular talking point, because I do get criticized. Well, Sean, how come you don't like G.I. Joe? How come you don't like Transformers? Because younger generations are not flocking to those properties like they are Star Wars. And really, in all honesty, guys, you have Lego to thank for that. Lego is really bringing in new collectors for the Star Wars line, and it is spreading to other markets. Like, there are people that I know that got into collecting factory sealed Lego Star Wars sets, and now they're going after a lot of the vintage Kenner Star Wars figures. We're not seeing that same enthusiasm with G.I. Joe, with Masters of the Universe, with Transformers. So you really have to use caution if you are going to invest in toy lines over the long term. You really have to take an honest look at the market and devoid yourself of any emotional attachment. That's how I'm going to end this particular segment. Thank you for watching. More Q&A videos will be coming soon. Enjoy your evening.